G'day, Dave here, looking again at Ecclesiastes. Ecclesiastes is a great book to be looking at a time when so much of our world is in change. It reflects on the nature of our lives. It pushes us to ask the hard questions. It causes us to evaluate and to review and to dissect the things that we're into. And what we're looking at now in chapter 2 from verse 17 of Ecclesiastes is digging into the topic of work. Why do we work? Why do we work hard? What are we hoping to achieve from the hard work? At what cost does it come to us? The sad reality, of course, is that people can work hard. They can spend long hours at the office. They can put in absolutely their whole life into a particular business. They retire and then they have a heart attack. Or they can work really hard. They can hand it on to their kids and their kids are not interested. And so they blow it very quickly. We don't have control over what comes after us. And we need to remember this. Ecclesiastes reminds us. Let's pick it up at chapter 2, verse 17. So I hated life because the work that's done under the sun was grievous to me. All of it's meaningless, a chasing after the wind. I hated all the things that I'd toiled for under the sun because I must leave them to the one who comes after me. And who knows whether that person will be wise or foolish. Yet they will have control over all the fruit of my toil into which I've poured my effort and skill under the sun. This too is meaningless. So my heart began to despair over all my toilsome labour under the sun. For a person may labour with wisdom and knowledge and skill, and then they must leave all that they own to another who has not toiled for it. This too is meaningless and a great misfortune. What do people get for all the toil and anxious striving with which they labour under the sun? All their days of work are grief and pain. Even at night their minds do not rest. This too is meaningless. It's extraordinary, isn't it, to think that this was written 3,000 years ago, because it is so true of the nature, particularly of Western working life now. Now that we're in this period of history where we've got a worldwide pandemic, where we are locked down, where we're having to face massive levels of unemployment, people having to make serious re-evaluation of their lives, thinking about how they are living, how they're preparing for their future, what they are looking to hand on to their kids and their grandkids and so on. We are greatly helped, I think, by looking at the perspective of Ecclesiastes, because so many people are working to leave a legacy, aren't they? They're doing what they're doing for the kids, they're doing what they're doing for the grandkids. Of course, some don't trust their kids. I've seen a few Winnebagos and stuff with stickers that say, I'm skinning the kids. Literally, I'm spending the kids' inheritance now. And of course, people do that. But many of us want to provide for our children, for our grandchildren, to give them a better standard of living, to give them more security, to actually set them up better than we feel we were for the generations to come. Not living for ourselves, of course, but yes, living for our children, living for our grandchildren, looking to provide something of meaning to our lives. And I don't think there's too many people, certainly you've heard the story, of people on their deathbed who say they wish they spent more time at the office. It just doesn't happen. More the case that people realise, maybe in retirement, maybe when things are going seriously wrong, that their lives have got out of proportion, that they've just placed far too much emphasis on work and what work can provide with an income and what that income can buy with property, with vehicles, with all kinds of different things, and that ultimately is not what life's about. And so you see this kind of decluttering strategy now in people's lives as they realise that they hate the things that they've toiled for. Well, it was like that back when the book of Ecclesiastes was written. The challenges that were written then are true today. We can make our lives miserable. Notice how often it was said painful toil, hard work, just focusing on work. That work is an end in itself. Or if it's not an end in itself, then the work to gain money and to gain security and to gain satisfaction and to gain happiness. That work is what it's really all about. And friends, one day we will see that's not the case. There's a story that Jesus tells of a man who he had a bumper crop, obviously a huge landowner, and he wanted to be able to provide for his future. And so he gathered up all of these crops. He didn't have room to put them in his barns, so they built bigger barns and silos to store all the grain and all the crops. And he's sitting back and he's thinking, I've got a whole future ahead of me. And Jesus' story finishes like this, that God said to him, you fool, because this very night your life will be demanded from you. If your life was demanded of you tonight, are you living? Are you living for stuff? Are you living for your work? Are you living for your kids? Are you living for the sake of your grandkids? What is it that shapes your life? Well, God calls us to see that there is a bigger picture to life. And as we look again at Ecclesiastes, the next episode brings God into the picture. And I encourage you to tune in for that. Thank you.